Hi guys, and welcome to part 3 of my ECR on AWS tutorial using GitHub Actions and Docker. In this part, we're going to look at building our Docker file, setting up the AWS CLI. We're going to do our permissions using policies, and we're going to update everything using shell scripts and npm. So there's a lot to do in this, so it might go fairly quickly. That's the beauty of YouTube. You can stop it, pause it, start it, however you want. Must excuse my nasally voice. I'm quite ill today, but I'm trying to power through and get this video up. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So the first thing we have to do is install the AWS CLI for your machine. You can do this by going to the link in the video. So we're using a Linux system on Windows, so we're going to go to the Linux x86 64-bit section, and we're going to copy and paste the command to download the zip file. Now you should already have some type of unzipping program, but if you don't, you can install the following: unzip. Now you can run the unzip command from the terminal on the zip file that we just downloaded. This might take a while, so go make a cup of tea and come back. Now, if you go back to the browser, there's the next command in step 4, which is to run the install script for AWS using sudo. Wait for this to install. We can confirm that AWS has been installed by typing AWS / version. We can also type AWS on its own, and we can see the command's syntax. For this next part, there's a couple of ways we can do this. We can either create a token for the overall root security user, or we can create a user and assign a set of permissions to that user and create a secret for that user. So that means that if we ever need to delete that user in the future or modify a user's permissions for any use, we can do that easily. If we use the root permissions, then we won't be able to restrict anything and it's not considered safe. For this user, I've called it Brad, and we're going to attach policies directly and click Next, and then click Create User. On the left-hand side, if you click Policies, a new page will open up. Then click Create Policy, which will open a new tab. Wait for this to load. And here we can create a permission set for ECS and ECR containers. So what we're going to type here is ECR, and click on Elastic Container Registry underneath. And because we want to be able to read everything, so it doesn't really impact this particular course, we're going to click List on everything and also click Read on everything. This will give us full read access for everything to do with the registries. On write, we only want the ability to upload an image, as that's the only thing we actually need. So we're going to open up write, and we're going to click on Put Image. For specifying the ARNs for this resource, it doesn't really matter what we put. We can put specific for this repository and any account, or we can select all. It really doesn't matter at this point. Now we're going to give our policy a name. So we're going to call it ECR-read all and upload image. So now you can see that our new policy has been created. Now we need to make a policy for the ECR permissions, the ECS permissions. So in the same fashion, we're going to select Elastic Container Service, select all of the list options and all of the read options, and we're going to look for update cluster on the right options, as that's the only thing we'll need for this tutorial. And below on the resources for the ARN, we're going to select all. And after clicking next, we'll have to set our policy name. So we're going to call this ECS-read all-update cluster. Or update service, I should say. And on the left-hand side, if you go back to the Users tab and select your user that we created earlier, we can click on add permissions and we can attach the new policies that we've created. Clicking the attach policies directly option. And we're going to search ECS first, and then we're going to type ECR second and check both of those boxes, and we should see both of them in the permission summary. So now this user has full access to those permissions. The next thing we need to do is set an access key. So if you click on security credentials and click create secret key, select command line interface, as that's where we're going to be using it from, and select create access key, and this will set up an access key and a secret access key. If we select the access key first and go back to your terminal, we can type in AWS configure and enter in the default region name should be EU-West-2 for London in our case. The output format should be none, and then if we type in cat ~key /AWS/credentials, we'll see our credentials have been added under default. 128-bit studios is my normal one, which I'm going to blur out for this video. If you're like me and you have two different sets of credentials, we can set which one AWS CLI should use by exporting AWS_profile in capitals and then setting the name. This will allow you to switch between the two sets of credentials depending on which project you're working on at the time. And we can type in echo AWS_profile to see which one we're currently using. If we go back to the UI and search for ECR in the AWS search, we can now create our repository. You can do this via the CLI, but I just find it a bit easier to do it in the UI. It's also worth noting that on the top right of the UI screen, you may not be in your desired region, so you can change that to EU-West-2, which is London in our case. That's caught me out a few times. So if we click on repositories and make sure that the public option is checked, you'll see that I have my 128-bit studios website already here as an image, and we're going to create a new one for the simple node web app. We can double check that our CLI permissions are working and that the repository has been made by going back to the command line and type in AWS ECR describe images and set the repository name to simple node web app. And you'll see we have image details is empty there because we don't currently have any images uploaded. So the next thing we need to do is actually create these scripts in order to build and deploy our local Docker file to the ECR. So we're going to take two scripts that I made earlier, the link is in the description below, and we're going to create a folder called scripts and put these two scripts in there. One's to build the Docker file, and the other one is to deploy it to the ECR. Obviously, you'll need to change the name of the image and the ARN to whatever your current credentials and repository name are. And to make this even easier still, we're going to update our package.json, and we're going to put a script in there to run these two shell scripts side by side so we can build and deploy all under one npm command. Again, the link to this package.json is in the description below. It might take a few minutes to upload, but once it's uploaded, you'll see the message on the screen. And if you go back to the UI and we check out our repository and refresh, we should see the latest image has been uploaded with the latest tag. And that concludes part 3 of the AWS ECS course. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next part.